Let's begin with a scene that plays out in countless lives. You're in a room full of people, and something feels off. Conversations are flowing, but they're shallow. Smiles are exchanged, but they're practiced. You notice someone across the room, quiet, unassuming, but completely at ease. They aren't trying to impress, yet everyone is drawn to them. Why? What is it about authenticity that pulls people in? Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, had an answer: authenticity resonates because it's rare. Most of us spend our lives wearing masks, trying to conform to expectations, afraid to show who we really are. Sartre believed that the freedom to define ourselves and live truthfully, is the most fundamental human condition. And yet, many of us run from it. Why? Because freedom comes with responsibility. To live authentically, you must own your choices, your flaws, your entire existence. That's no small task. Here's where it gets interesting. Sartre didn't just describe authenticity, he exposed the reasons we avoid it. He called it bad faith, the act of deceiving ourselves into thinking we are less free than we actually are. For example, have you ever told yourself, "I have no choice," or "this is just who I am"? Those are lies we tell to escape the weight of our freedom. But here's the twist: when you reject your freedom, you also reject your power. This is why people fall for authenticity. When someone embraces their freedom, when they show up as their raw, unfiltered self, it reminds us of what we're missing. It stirs something deep within us, a longing to break free from our own bad faith. Authenticity isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. It's a mirror that reflects the courage we wish we had. Let's break this down. What does it mean to live authentically? Sartre argued that authenticity starts with one thing: owning your choices. Every time you blame circumstances, other people, or even luck for your situation, you give away your power. But when you take responsibility, you reclaim it. Imagine meeting someone who doesn't apologize for who they are. They don't make excuses, and they don't seek approval. That kind of presence is electrifying.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But let's get real for a moment. Living authentically isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to face parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Sartre understood this. He wrote that freedom often feels like vertigo, as if you're standing on the edge of an abyss. But here's the paradox: that same abyss is where your power lies. When you stop running from it, you discover that you can fly. Think about a time when you were truly yourself, no filters, no masks. Maybe it was with someone you trust completely, or maybe it was in a moment of solitude. How did it feel? Freeing, right? Now think about why those moments are so rare. What holds you back? Is it fear of judgment, fear of failure, or is it something deeper, a fear of your own potential? Sartre would say that fear is the price of freedom. But here's the good news: once you embrace it, you become unstoppable. People are drawn to authenticity, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Perfection is sterile, but reality is alive. It's messy, raw, and beautiful. Let's get practical. If you want to start living authentically, the first step is to identify where you're living in bad faith. Where are you hiding? What parts of yourself are you suppressing to fit in or avoid conflict? This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about becoming aware. Awareness is the foundation of authenticity. Next, start small. Speak your truth in situations where you'd usually stay silent. Express an unpopular opinion. Admit when you don't know something. These might seem like minor acts, but they're incredibly powerful. Each time you choose authenticity over conformity, you strengthen your freedom. Here's a thought experiment: imagine two versions of yourself. One spends their life chasing approval, playing it safe, and avoiding risks. The other embraces their freedom, takes bold actions, and owns their flaws. Which version do you think people are more likely to admire? Which version would you admire? The beauty of Sartre's philosophy is that it doesn't ask you to be anyone other than who you are. In fact, it insists on it. He believed that we are not defined by our past or our labels. We are defined by our actions, by the choices we make every day. This means you have the power to redefine yourself at any moment. You're not stuck. You're not a victim of circumstance. You are free. But freedom, as Sartre reminds us, is scary. It's much easier to hide behind a mask and play a role. Yet the cost of that safety is high. When you hide who you are, you lose connection not just with others but with yourself. And here's the irony: the very thing you're afraid of, being judged, rejected, or misunderstood, is far less painful than living a life that isn't your own. To wrap up this section, let's return to the person across the room, the one everyone is drawn to. They're not trying to be anyone else. They're not performing or posturing, they're simply being. That's Sartre's secret. Authenticity isn't about effort, it's about alignment. When you align with who you truly are, you don't need to chase approval. Approval finds you. Now let's push deeper. If authenticity is the magnet that draws people to you, what happens when you fully embrace it? The answer lies in Sartre's most profound idea: freedom is not just a personal experience, it's relational. How you live your freedom affects everyone around you. Authenticity isn't just about you, it's about the connections you create. Imagine this: you're talking to someone who's completely genuine. They're not trying to impress you, sell you something, or win you over. Instead, they're fully present. They listen without an agenda. They speak without pretense. It feels refreshing, doesn't it? That's the power of authenticity in relationships. It creates trust because there's nothing hidden. Sartre believed that the moment you step into your authentic self, you liberate others to do the same. It's like a ripple effect. When you show up without a mask, you give people permission to lower theirs. But here's the challenge: authenticity is contagious, but so is inauthenticity. If you're fake, others will mirror that. If you're real, they'll mirror that too. Let's look at why this happens. Sartre saw human beings as fundamentally interconnected. He called it being for others. What he meant is that we're always aware of how others see us, and this awareness shapes our actions. It's why we're tempted to play roles to become what we think others want us to be. But this comes at a cost. The more you shape yourself for others, the more you lose sight of who you really are. Here's where it gets fascinating. When you reject the need to perform and embrace your authentic self, something incredible happens. Your relationships shift. People are drawn to you, not because of what you do for them, but because of who you are. They're not attracted to the roles you play, but to the freedom you embody. And that kind of connection is rare. It's the kind of connection that lasts. Think about your closest relationships. Are they built on honesty, or are there layers of performance and expectation? Sartre would argue that true intimacy, whether it's with a friend, partner, or family member, can only exist when both people are free to be themselves. If one person is performing, the connection isn't real. It's a facade. Let's bring this into the real world. How often do you catch yourself saying what you think others want to hear? How often do you avoid speaking your truth because you're afraid of how it will be received? These are subtle forms of bad faith. They keep you stuck in roles, even in your closest relationships. But when you start showing up as your authentic self, you create space for others to do the same. You build connections that are real, not transactional. Now here's the part that most people miss: authenticity doesn't mean being perfect. It means being honest. It's not about having all the answers or never making mistakes. It's about owning your imperfections and being okay with them. Sartre believed that freedom isn't about being flawless, it's about being responsible. When you own your flaws, You take away their power to control you. Let's talk about fear again. One of the biggest fears we have is the fear of rejection. We worry that if we show people who we really are, they won't accept us. But think about this: when was the last time you truly connected with someone who was pretending to be perfect? Perfection creates distance. Vulnerability creates closeness. When you let people see your humanity, they feel safe to show you theirs. Here's something you can try today. In your next conversation, be fully present. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Don't worry about how you're coming across. Just listen. And when you speak, speak honestly. You'll notice something remarkable: the energy of the conversation changes. It becomes deeper, more real. That's the power of authenticity in action. Sartre also believed that authenticity transforms not just your relationships, but your entire experience of life. When you're authentic, you stop chasing external validation. You stop measuring your worth by what others think of you. Instead, you find meaning in your own choices. And this is where true freedom lies. It's not about being free from responsibility, it's about taking full responsibility for your life. Think about how liberating this is. When you live authentically, you don't need anyone's approval. You don't need to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You define your own values, your own path, your own identity. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop letting their opinions control you. But here's the twist: when you stop seeking approval, you often get more of it. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin. Why? Because it's rare. Most people are so busy trying to fit in that they forget how powerful it is to stand out. When you embrace your authentic self, you don't just attract others, you inspire them. Let's go deeper. Sartre believed that authenticity isn't just about how you live, it's about how you face existence itself. Life is full of uncertainty, and most of us try to avoid it. We cling to routines, labels, and roles because they make us feel safe. But safety is an illusion. The only real security comes from embracing the unknown, from stepping into the world as your true self, without guarantees. To close this section, think about this: what would your life look like if you stopped pretending? If you stopped hiding behind roles and showed up as your authentic self? How would your relationships change? How would your choices change? And how would the way you see yourself change? In the final part, we'll explore the practical steps to living authentically every day, and why Sartre believed that authenticity isn't just a personal act, but a revolutionary one. When you live authentically, you don't just transform your own life, you create a ripple effect that changes the world around you. Let's get straight to it. When Sartre talked about authenticity, he wasn't just offering personal advice, he was issuing a challenge. To be authentic is to take a stand, not just for yourself, but for the kind of world you want to live in. Every choice you make shapes not only your reality, but also the reality of those around you. So living authentically isn't just about freedom, it's about responsibility. Here's the catch: authenticity isn't easy, and it's not supposed to be. Sartre believed that living authentically means rejecting the comfortable lies we tell ourselves to fit in. It means facing the truth, even when it's inconvenient. But the reward is worth it, because the life you build is real. It's not borrowed from someone else's expectations. It's yours. Let's look at the practical side. How do you bring authenticity into every day? Start with how you make decisions. Most people decide based on what they think they should do. But every time you say should, stop and ask, whose voice is that? Is it yours? Or is it society's, your parents', or someone else's? Authentic decisions come from your own values, not from trying to meet someone else's expectations. Next, think about how you communicate. Are you saying what you mean, or are you saying what's easiest? Authenticity in communication doesn't mean being blunt or insensitive. It means speaking with honesty and intention. If something matters to you, say it. If you disagree, express it respectfully. People might not always like what you have to say, but they'll respect that it's real. Now, let's talk about fear. Fear will try to convince you that authenticity is a risk. It will tell you that being yourself might cost you relationships, opportunities, or approval. And sometimes it will. Not everyone will understand or accept your authentic self. But think about the alternative. Do you really want relationships that are built on a version of you that isn't real? Do you want success that comes from playing a role you don't believe in? Here's something to try the next time you're in a situation where you feel tempted to wear a mask at work, with friends, or even online. Pause. Instead of defaulting to what feels safe, say or do what feels true. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, it becomes second nature. And here's the magic: the more you show your authentic self, the more you attract people and opportunities that align with who you really are. Sartre believed that authenticity isn't just about what you do, it's about how you see the world. Most people view life as something that happens to them. They see themselves as passive, shaped by circumstances they can't control. But when you live authentically, you flip the script. You realize that life doesn't define you, you define life through your choices. That's why authenticity is so powerful. It puts you in the driver's seat. Let's go even deeper. Authenticity isn't just about being honest with others, it's about being honest with yourself. How often do you avoid looking at parts of your life because they're uncomfortable? Maybe it's a relationship that no longer feels right. Maybe it's a job that drains you. Authenticity means facing those truths, even when it's hard, because pretending they're not there won't make them go away. This brings us to Sartre's most radical idea: authenticity is a revolution. Every time you choose to live authentically, you challenge a system that thrives on conformity. Think about it. Society is designed to reward people who fit in. It's easier to control people who play by the rules, who don't question the script they've been given. But when you live authentically, you rewrite the script. You show others that it's possible to break free. And that's a powerful thing. This is why people fall for authenticity. It's not just about being real, it's about being brave. It's about showing others what freedom looks like and inviting them to experience it for themselves. When you live authentically, you become a beacon, not because you're perfect, but because you're free. Now let's talk about what happens when you fully step into your authenticity. At first, you might feel resistance. People who are used to the old version of you might not know how to react. Some might even push back. But over time, something incredible happens. You start to attract the right people, the ones who love the real you, the ones who challenge and inspire you, the ones who help you grow. And it doesn't stop with people. Opportunities start to align with your values. Instead of chasing what you think you're supposed to want, you find yourself drawn to what truly matters. Success becomes less about external validation and more about living a life that feels meaningful to you. Here's the part that no one talks about: authenticity doesn't make life easier. It makes life richer. There will still be challenges, failures, and heartbreaks. But when you face them as your authentic self, they don't break you. They shape you. And each time you rise, you become more of who you're meant to be. So here's the question: are you willing to let go of who you think you're supposed to be, to become who you really are? This isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily practice. But the more you choose authenticity, the more it becomes your default. And the more it becomes your default, the more magnetic you become. To close, remember this: Sartre's secret isn't about trying to make people fall for you. It's about giving them something real to fall for. It's about showing them what freedom, courage, and honesty look like. And when you do that, you don't just change your own life, you change theirs too. The world needs more authenticity. It needs people who are willing to live their truth, even when it's hard. So if you're ready to stop hiding, start now. The moment you step into your authentic self, you'll see the difference, not just in how others respond to you, but in how you respond to life. And that's where the magic happens.